looks like it's going to work.
Okay.
Looky there. And we're connected and live. Let me get Instagram joining us here.
Okay.
Let's see. Maybe. Here we are. Okay, look at that.
Yeah.
So, hey, Lauren, good to have you here tonight. For those watching, we are going to be talking about common societal narratives about adoption and what it's like to receive some online pushback when you're advocating for adoption reform as an adoptee.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having
Yes,
me.
excited. We were just talking about how we just had a one-on-one yap session, a couple weeks ago, and we had lots to talk about. So we figured we'd bring the conversation to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how about this? Let's start off with how we came to realize that adoption wasn't everything society says it is, and kind of go from there.
Sure, yeah, that works for
Okay.
me.
All right. Tell us, Lauren, how did that happen for you?
Yeah, so for me, realizing that adoption wasn't everything it's all cracked up to be, it was a slow process at first. There were little red flags here and there when I found out. So I had met my well, so let's see, let me backtrack here. Okay, so I grew up with an adopted brother. We both kind of talked about it a few times, and like he kind of dominated the conversations in those moments, and he kind of said, like, our parents are our parents, and that nothing else really matters. So I kind of went along with it, and I was like, okay, I mean, if he thinks that, I probably should too. So I just kind of went with that, and didn't really think much else of it. But then I found my birth mom's name when he needed paperwork for something, when we were in our mid-20s. And that was like, oh wow, okay, cool. And then when my adopted mom had gotten sick, and I was looking for like a living will or something, and I found an envelope with my birth mom's name on it, which I'd only just found out like maybe a month or two beforehand. And I ended up reconnecting with her, and when I told my adoptive mom about it, she wasn't all excited like I thought she would be, and that kind of like was my first red flag, like, oh, something's going on here that might not be right. But she was supportive and everything, but there was just a look in her eyes that kind of told me that she wasn't really as on board as I might be. um So that was one of the first things, and then it was like little things over the years, like she wasn't all that excited to meet my um, birth birth family as I thought she might be. And then um, years later, it wasn't until I really found adoptee community that I was introduced to the idea that adoption is trauma and all of that, and then I like everything started to click for me, like every little tiny red flag that I'd seen in the past kind of made sense to me. And I realized, oh wow, this isn't sunshine and rainbows. So
Yeah, I think what strikes me about your story is that you found that piece of information about your origins as you were looking for other paperwork, and you were like excited and interested to learn about it. And so then taking it to your parent who, you thought would be excited and interested with you because they say they love you and they care, and getting that opposite reaction, like what did that feel like for you?
yeah, it was bizarre. It was almost surreal. Like I didn't understand it at the time. I was just very shocked almost, and to think like, well, am I doing something wrong? Am I hurting them? Am I, I automatically jumped to like, well, what's my impact on them going to be? And, it kind of goes back to the obligation and guilt and all of that that comes with the fog, as we all know about. But
Yeah, and I think we should say more about what the fog is in
yeah.
case anyone listening hasn't heard of it, because I was in your shoes too of learning more about like adoption and what it really is or how other people feel about it from other adoptees online, and I didn't know what the fog was until I came out of it. So,
Right.
for everyone listening, FOG is an acronym. It stands for fear, obligation, and guilt. And those are three factors that adoptees feel keep us in a metaphorical fog about adoption and what it actually is. And so, being in the fog is shorthand for going along with those societal narratives we were always taught about what it means to be adopted rather than reckoning with it for yourself. And so, coming out of the fog is that process. It's almost like deconstruction. When religious people talk about deconstruction, it's kind of like deconstructing adoption to come out of the fog. So that's what we mean when we say fog.
Yep.
Yeah. But similar for me, I came out of the fog in the midst of a whole lot of other big life changes that were happening, including religious deconstruction. And because of how entwined my religious upbringing was with being adopted, it kind of all happened at once without me really like seeking out deconstruction. And so like the scales kind of fell from my eyes as far as like the narrative I grew up with about adoption was likening it to uh, the Christian gospel, that it was a salvation story and everything was great and it was me being saved. And um, very much my experiences didn't reflect that, but I had never put that together until I heard other adoptees talking about it online.
Yep.
So that's kind of how we came out of the fog. What made you want to start advocating for or talking about your defogging online?
Great. So I think just hearing other adoptees talk about it too, like it gave me the courage to put myself out there. And well, it also, I did like a deep dive into the adoption industry because I didn't really know, like I was adopted, but I didn't really know all that much about the adoption industry itself. So I started learning more about that. And when I did, I, came across the history of it and things like Georgia Tan and, all of the kind of shocking histories and all of that that come up when you research adoption in the United States. Um, and so, the more and more I realized that it wasn't sunshines and rainbows, the more I felt like, nobody's really talking this about this aside from adoptees. And, I need to I just felt the compelled to put myself out there and start talking about it. So,
Yeah. And I feel like that's a common thread I see a lot, which makes it really nice to have community online when you go looking for it. I remember, I think I've told you this, that you were one of the first accounts I came across when I was looking to see if anyone else was thinking the same things I was or realizing similar things to me. And it was really validating to find you and a handful of others. And that community has just really multiplied. But I think it's interesting that we all share a common thread of, hey, I figured this out. And I feel like other people need to know that this is a common misconception, huge misinformation happening on like a societal scale, and we could do something about it. So let's at least start talking about it.
for sure. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that, just awareness is the first step in getting real change to happen. So the more that non-adopted people start talking about it and realizing, all the misconceptions, I think the more chance we'll have of actual change happening.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely. Like the first step is us realizing that our experiences didn't line up to what we were told they were going to be. And once other people are able to see that, then we can actually say, okay, well, if the experience doesn't match what we say adoption is supposed to accomplish, then how can we fix that?
right,
But we have to admit it first. Absolutely.
for
So
sure.
we decided to kind of like take the bull by the horns here with the reactions that we get to sharing some of these truths online. And so let's like jump straight into it.
Okay.
What's broadly been your experience with, let's say, well, I mean, I think it can be similar with adopted versus non-adopted people that have questions or comments. So what has your overarching experience been like with other people's reactions online?
So it's been a mixture for sure. I get a lot of support from fellow adoptees, I think the most, more so than kept people. But
Mhm.
it's been a mixture of adoptees as well. Like there's been a lot of quote unquote happy adoptees who are still perhaps in the fog or maybe just don't know about the adoption industry as it works in the United States. And maybe, if they've had a great experience, that's awesome too. But, they kind of push back and say, well, you can't speak for everyone. My experience was great. And, I try to decenter my own experience when I talk about it because, then it's not just me projecting my personal experience onto everybody because that's not helpful for anybody. So, I try to focus on the industry and the facts and all of that. But definitely I get a lot of pushback with people just saying, well, I know a happy adoptee, or I know adoptees who are happy. Um, or you're just because you had a bad experience doesn't mean that, everyone's experience is bad. But, like I said, I try to decenter my experience. So I haven't even said anything about my experience when they say that.
Mhm.
So, it's kind of funny because I did have like a net positive experience. I mean, it wasn't perfect, that's for sure, but, it wasn't full of trauma and full of extra things that my adoptive parents did to me or anything like that. Um, so it's really, and that's part of what made me realize, like, adoption trauma is a real thing because, I had all of these great things going on in my life. Like, why was I still feeling so sad and so, like, I was going through depression and all of that. And so, that kind of was another red flag for me that something was not right. And I didn't know what it was until I found the adoptee community. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Similar for me. By all the societal measures, I had a happy and positive adoption, but there were things under the surface that I was not able to acknowledge because I wasn't given the space or the language or the um, awareness in my childhood home that would have allowed me to maybe deal with them sooner. So you get to be in your 30s and there's just something, like I used to describe it as like this perpetual feeling of I'm not what I'm supposed to be or who I'm supposed to be, or something's wrong and I don't know what it is. And it
Definitely.
was pre-verbal trauma. Yeah, absolutely. So I think, you know, I've experienced similarly where there are broadly two categories of pushback, and I get broad pushback from non-adoptees in one bucket, and then broadly, like, happy adoptees will push back in another bucket, and I agree with you. I think I've never experienced a defogged adoptee leading with assumptions that our experiences are everyone's across the board. Like, it seems
Right.
amongst the defogged, like a truth universally acknowledged that every adoption story is different, right? But the
Mhm,
commonalities we do share are those human rights violations of the system itself, are the fact that maternal relinquishment is traumatic. It
mhm.
affects us in myriad of ways. Like, what someone's brain and body does with that impact of trauma can vary. But the fact is, science shows that maternal relinquishment is traumatic. So, like, even
Mhm.
just the foundation of the legal side, the human rights violations, and the trauma side, like, that is universal, even if our experiences surrounding that aren't. So I haven't seen any defogged adoptee leading with like, this must be what everyone else's experience is because it's what mine was. Because we went in search of other people to see if we were right. We don't generally lead with that. So it's interesting that the main source of pushback is, well, you're assuming and blah blah blah, when it's kind of the opposite. Like,
Right.
we get a lot of assuming comments. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and there's just so many, like, similar comments that people come up with, that, like, people started making adoptee bingo cards.
Mhm.
And, I a couple years ago, I made a bunch of them. And, like, it's just, I mean, I can share some of the things that are on them, but it's
Yeah.
just the common comments that we get all the time.
Should we play
Um,
put a finger down?
yeah, we could do that.
Okay, read some. Read some.
Alright, let me pull them up real quick. Hold on.
This is like the ultimate put a finger down game, because don't you said you made several bingo cards. Like, there's
There's a bunch of them. Yeah.
a
Let me
bunch of common responses. While she's looking that up, everybody, like, the reason we wanted to highlight this topic today is just to say, like, this is a common experience amongst people who talk about adoption reform online, and we see it and we recognize, like, the reasons for the pushback. Um, it can be really uncomfortable to acknowledge that a system you've always been taught was beneficial is harmful. Every defogged adoptee had to start with realizing that. Um, but we really need to push past these common responses in order to have like productive discussions. So that's why we wanted to highlight them today. Plus, it's kind of funny sometimes
Yeah, for
how
sure.
often we hear these things. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always the adoption is beautiful.
oh,
Um, yep.
are we putting them down? Because that I've definitely
Oh,
gotten
yeah,
that.
we
Let's
can
push
do
back.
that, yep. Sure, yep. So have you ever
Okay.
heard adoption is beautiful?
Mhm.
Yep. Um, Adoption saves lives.
Oh, yeah. My adoptive parents
Yeah.
saved me from who knows what.
Yeah. I know an adoptee and they're happy.
Mhm, mhm.
So there's that one. It was God's plan.
Oh, in my household, let alone other people online.
Yeah. And then there's the why do you hate infertile people?
Oh, yeah. Automatically, right?
Hmm.
We don't, by the way, guys.
Right, we don't. Many of us experience infertility as well, so it's not a it's not an attack by any means. But yeah, and then there's adoption isn't buying babies. Um, let's see. Adoption gave you a better life. And then of course you're so ungrateful.
Yeah. Can I put 2 fingers down for that one? Just for the
Right.
sheer number of times I've heard it.
Right. And then of course should all unwanted kids live in orphanages, which
Or
of
in foster care
yeah, or in
or in a
foster care.
dumpster.
Exactly.
Mhm,
Yeah, you name it, they come up with something. I'm trying to think. There's been some unique ones. Like I'm always impressed almost when people come up with more unique alternatives to adoption like those.
mhm,
But
mhm,
yeah. You were a gift to your parents.
mhm.
Yeah.
I'm out of fingers already.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us some more.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, and then of course, like finding your bio family is leaving your adopted family, or
Mhm,
like assumptions that you don't you're um rejecting your adoptive family by trying to find your biological family.
mhm.
Um and then many people say they only want to adopt a baby.
So that somehow makes it okay. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, there's just so many. I it didn't it doesn't work anymore, but there was a wheel of names thing that I had made, like a spinner, with
Mhm.
all of them on there, and I think there was like 50 of them that
Oh,
just
yeah.
yeah. But
So many. We've got some additional input on some common ones people have heard over on
oh yeah, I'm sure there's
Instagram.
plenty. Yeah.
Um, Stephanie says, "God's plan was a big one for sure." Yes, like all the
Mhm,
time. We've got "You're so ungrateful" was the theme of my whole childhood. Yes, yeah.
mhm.
Anytime I had a question about literally anything, it came back to the way we got back to like a normal was, "Hey, like you need to be grateful for what you have and not question it."
Right.
So all the
Exactly.
time. Oh, you were wanted. You're lucky
Oh,
you were chosen.
chosen, yep. Chosen and
Mhm,
wanted.
mhm.
Absolutely, all the time.
Yeah, and then some echoes of being ungrateful for looking for bio family as if, like, we weren't just trying to find missing pieces of ourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and then there's it's come up like a few times almost cyclically like that there's this online debate about like whether or not adopted children should search for biological family, and then there was when those debates kind of came up and videos went viral where people were saying that like they would not like it if an adopted child came looking for them, like there was a lot of pushback on that. So,
Mhm.
that was not a fun place to be an advocate.
Yeah, no, that one's an especially tough conversation, I think, because there are a lot of people who assume how they would feel if they were a bio parent and someone came looking, not that they've ever, like, relinquished a child,
Right.
and I think there's like, a especially high amount of assumption in that particular conversation.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, let's jump into like some of those common ones we mentioned and maybe like start to pick them apart a bit, refute them,
Okay.
and kind of talk about why they're maybe not very helpful.
Yeah.
So let's start with the assumption that infants are kind of a blank slate that can seamlessly assimilate into a biological family or into
Yes.
an adoptive family, rather.
Right. I mean, that's a huge one. I mean, blank slate theory has been disproven so many times, but people still seem to think that a baby, because they don't have like those memories, like those solidified formed memories when they're babies, that they don't remember the relinquishment. But I mean, there's been so many studies about maternal separation for like babies in the NICU.
Mhm.
Even just that is enough to cause changes in the brain, to raise cortisol levels and cause lasting change. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And when we're talking about raised cortisol levels, I mean, this is a lifetime of increased cortisol. And we know from studies of the adverse childhood experiences for the ACEs questionnaire that there can be lifelong health effects from anything that causes chronic stress or chronically raised cortisol. So, personally, as a physician, I feel like maternal relinquishment itself should be an ACE.
Mhm.
But at the very least, we need to acknowledge that we have, as you say, hard data that shows that babies aren't blank slates, even babies who are forced to assimilate into an adoptive family. So to kind of lead with, "Oh, you were an infant, you don't remember. How could you possibly like be affected by this now? You're just," I see commonly tacked onto this. You're just making yourself into a victim.
Right.
That really negates like,
You're That's a big one too, is just people saying that you're playing the victim and always trying to be a victim, and it's like, "No, that's not what's happening here at all."
sometimes I just want to say, I'm not playing it. I was made to be one. I'd love not
Right.
to be a victim of this, but it literally happened to me without my consent, and I have no legal pathway to annul it. Side
Mhm.
note. So I'm not playing it. I'm there.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. And
absolutely.
then
But
just another note about the babies, and, like, I know there's been research about babies, like, recognizing their mother's voice and
mhm,
recognizing their gait and the way they move, and just their bodies in general, their scent and all of that stuff. So, babies know. They
mhm,
know if it's their mom or not, and yeah, there was a really great video, that I duetted a while ago, where this baby's mother had passed away during childbirth, I think it was, or maybe shortly after, but they had taken done like a Build-A-Bear where they did a audio clip of the mother's heartbeat, and the
mm,
baby, like, immediately calmed down as soon as they played the heartbeat of the mother, so
mhm.
it was really just eye-opening as to how much that really makes a difference.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I got really nerdy with a friend of mine, who was a labor and delivery nurse, and we talked last night, and got really nerdy about placentas, which I will not do
okay.
here. If people wanna hear it and get nerdy with me, that's fun,
Mhm,
and they can, see that video, but just the way the placenta works between a birthing person and a baby, like, is a physiologic entwining of 2 people, and
mhm,
there's this really cool mechanism called maternal fetal microchimerism, where we carry each other's cells for years and years and years after there's a pregnancy event. So we literally biologically carry each other within, and more than just our DNA. So
mhm,
science is on our side, which I say all the time. Of like, if we're getting pushback online, that's fine. Like people are going to disagree, but the science is on the side of adoption being something that we should reconsider and reform. And that's one way that we have evidence that like preverbal trauma and maternal relinquishment are real impacts. Absolutely.
for sure.
So babies are not blank slates.
Right.
Let's go to adoption is beautiful again, because I feel like this one is so it has so many tentacles. It's like a
Yeah,
octopus with a million legs. So
for
let's
sure.
talk about adoption's beautiful.
Yeah, so when I hear that now, I think, and I've heard other adoptees say too, like, adoption is beautiful for who? Who is it beautiful for? Is it beautiful for the adoptee? Maybe, maybe not. It's again up to the adoptee what they feel about their adoption. But the in a lot of the ways that we look at it in terms of like the research and the impact on the person, like the adoptive parent is really the one that seems to benefit the most from the adoption. There's the increased risk of mental health illness and attempted suicide and everything like that for adoptees and for birth moms, and I think it's 35 times the risk for adoptees and 37 times for the birth moms. So just seeing that, it's like, is that beautiful? Doesn't sound beautiful.
No, certainly not. And the disenfranchised grief of it all is certainly not a beautiful experience. And like,
Mhm,
for those who don't know, disenfranchised grief means like grief that you feel, but society either doesn't give you words or coerces you by the prominent social narratives to ignore it. So for me, in my story, it was not having words or knowing that it was grief I was carrying. because we just don't talk about the impacts of adoption on adoptees. So if we don't talk about them and acknowledge that they're real, then how do we find language to heal from it? So
Right.
yes, grief, a lifetime of grief is not very beautiful. And I try to have compassion for or for everyone involved in adoption, including adoptive parents, because I
Right.
think that the industry, there's a level of impact that the industry does lie to everyone involved about the fact that adoption is going to
Absolutely.
be beautiful, right? Or a solution to
Absolutely.
infertility.
Right.
Um, I think it's when adoptive parents aren't able to acknowledge there was unseen harm or unknown harm and that adoption wasn't beautiful. Like for any part of the adoption constellation to be unable to acknowledge that adoption is not inherently beautiful is where we run into problems.
Mhm.
So I guess that's an aside of I see a lot of non-adopted people accusing adoptee advocates online of villainizing adoptive parents, and that's most of us are not doing that. Some of us are telling very real stories of abuses that happened in our adoptive homes, and
Right.
that's still not a form of villainization. But I don't think any of us are saying that all adoptive parents are evil just because they participated in adoption. What we are saying is that y'all have a duty, adoptive parents, to work with us in this and to deconstruct alongside us and to find better ways along with us. Um,
Absolutely.
so we acknowledge that adoption isn't necessarily all beautiful for adoptive parents either. And I don't know if I
Right.
think there's some disenfranchised grief there too, most likely. Like
There
I
can
know
be.
my
Sure.
adoptive parents did not attend grief therapy for their infertility, which is what led them to me.
Right, and I don't think mine did either, but and that's, I've tried talking to my adoptive parents about adoption and it hasn't gone so well. So I'm hoping to continue the conversation in civil ways and all of that, but it's a touchy subject for them, and that's what makes me think they have not really addressed it at all.
Yes, it's a hard, hard conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I'm kind of bullheaded about it, and I tried to bring it up multiple times over multiple years, and my adoptive parents ended up saying, "You know what? We're not going to turn our lives upside down to understand this with you," which was very disappointing because I can understand why maybe it feels like turning your life upside down a bit. It is
Mhm.
dismantling a lot of the core beliefs that were based in the foundation of industry lies and propaganda. But I didn't have a choice whether I was going to turn my life upside down to
Right.
understand it. And I certainly didn't choose turning my life upside down to assimilate into a family of people that are not genetically related to me. So it kind of felt unfair that they were able to opt out and I was not.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry that happened, but
Me too. I'm hoping at some point we can have that discussion again. But for now, yes, it was very much a we're not willing to go there.
yeah.
Um, okay, well, we're kind of already there, but let's dovetail into adoption cures infertility.
Yeah, so that's kind of how the lie that is sold to the adoptive parents, and as an infertile person, you always kind of hear like, well, just adopt, or just, adoption is it's painted as a cure for infertility, and it's not. Your adopted child is never going to be your biological child, so it doesn't fill that void that you have as an infertile person. If what you really want is to have your own biological child, it's not going to be that. So
Mhm. Yeah,
it's
there are a lot of nuanced needs that an adoptee is gonna have just because they were adopted, and that's at any age with any circumstance prior to that being what happens. And so I think it's for the infertile people out there who've been told, "Well, you could just adopt," like, that's really minimizing your experience too, because it is
really
if you're going to minimize the harm done, and adopt, then you have a lifetime alongside the person that comes into your family of reckoning with this and dealing with the consequences. So it's certainly not a cure for infertility, although interestingly, some of us have siblings after us that are
right.
biological to our adoptive parents, and that's a whole different dynamic, right? So, like,
Mhm.
technically, did my presence in their lives secure their infertility? No. Is that a phenomenon that seems to happen? Yes. And actually, that's something I need to look up some data on and see if we've studied how frequently that does happen. And if anybody watching knows a study, please send it my way in my
Right.
DMs
Mhm.
because I'm a big research nerd. Um,
Mhm.
but it, it's still not a cure. I mean, having an adoptive child in your home didn't cure you. You just happen to experience resolution in your infertility and have adopted in that scenario. So certainly
Exactly.
not a cure, definitely adds complexity and nuance
Absolutely.
rather than curing. Absolutely. Um, what about love is all you need?
Love is all you need, yeah.
I'm gonna start singing the Beatles.
Right. Love is all you need. That's one that you hear a lot, especially, and I don't want to speak on the experience of transracially adopted people, but that's what you hear a lot in conversations around transracial adoption because, you know, from what I've seen, big creators who put their lives out there and they've adopted transracially, they say like they don't see color and all you need is love, and it's a lot more complex than that. There's a lot of nuance and a lot
Yeah.
of, like we've talked about, like adopted children need to be parented differently because of that. And um, whether or not you're transracially adopted, there's going to be changes that they need to make in terms of parenting an adopted child, and you can't just love away trauma.
Mhm.
You can't love away the trauma of maternal separation. And I mean, some parents seem to intuitively know things to do that mitigate the trauma. Some actively seek out trauma-informed sources and research, and they try to do their best to be trauma-informed and to make good choices that mitigate the trauma, but it's not all love.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a level of things we need as adoptees that love doesn't provide. I mean, as you said, love can't erase trauma, but it also can't replace biological mirroring, which is a really important part of our development. And so, when even just I think of I was going to say relatively harmless example. It didn't affect my mortality rate. Like I'm not going to die sooner because of this, but my curly hair. I grew up in a family of people who, I'm a same race adoptee, but everyone in my family had stick straight hair. And so when I grew up taking care of my hair the way they did, I didn't know I had curly hair until I was in college. And
Wow.
so to discover that, and part of that is that I didn't get pictures of my mom until I was 18 and asked for
Okay.
them, which is a
Right.
real shame because she passed away when I was little. And even just having photos of her would have been a real comfort, even in my teen years of my body was very different from the people that raised me, my hair very different. And so there's so much I've had to like learn and unlearn
Yep.
about taking care of me that I would have maybe had if some of these differences had been honored, at the
Absolutely.
very least honored, if not like, had a relationship with the people who I did share similarities with. So,
Absolutely.
love can't replace your DNA.
Right.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
And just to
Um,
jump off of that too, like there's so many issues that can come up because you don't have genetic mirroring, like the
mhm,
like body dysmorphia, eating disorders, all of that kind of stuff can happen because you don't have the genetic mirroring. So
mhm,
it
yeah.
can definitely be a challenge.
Yes, and so similar I think similar to the love is all you need one, it's, this assumption that uh, impacts are erased by intent. So, for people
Right.
who adopted because they wanted to do something good, so, like, I talk a lot about being raised in evangelicalism and in Christianity, and on Orphan Sunday, we celebrate the verse in James about, caring for orphans and widows in their distress, and what Christians have made of that verse is, that's adoption.
Right.
Um, but I think intending to save a child by adopting, possibly good. I mean, I'd call it an overall, like at face value, a good intent, I guess, to help,
Right.
that helping. But if we look at the actual impact, it's not actually a helpful thing. Like, and the intent doesn't erase the fact that adoption is harmful. And then
Mhm.
we look at the intent itself, and maybe is backed by some really unhealthy things like colonialism and
Yeah.
saviorism, etc.
Right.
White supremacy. So, intent and impact kind of dovetails with the idea of love being all you need. And
Right.
unfortunately, good intent does not erase a lifetime of impact.
Right.
Yeah. Should we pause and look at some of the Instagram comments? Because we've got some
Oh
friends
yeah.
live and they've been saying some really
Absolutely.
cool things. So,
Yeah,
hi,
I love
everybody.
that.
I'm
Yeah, I
so
can't
glad.
see them, so go ahead and read some. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're all here. Okay. Um, Lots of friends here. Someone says, spiritually, I knew things and found affirmations when finding biological mom. Yeah, like it's kind of on an extra spiritual level. Some of those things you were missing before are eased by reunion sometimes. I
Yeah.
see that very much.
Mhm.
The more I understood how much I lost as an adoptee, the more I also understood how much my bio mom lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a good point. Like I think when adoptee losses are glossed over, same with those biological parent losses too, and it
Mhm.
just gets more and more complex. Stephanie made that comment, and she's been working through a lot of paperwork in order to get a passport in her country of origin, and like it's just so much complexity. And love doesn't get you your passport, does it, Stephanie?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some people saying the certain stories they were given, they bought all the way into adulthood, just like me. Like,
Yep.
yeah, been there. You stay in
Absolutely.
the fog. I mean, it's the default.
For sure.
Um, yeah. Yeah, dismissal of the parents' own bias in transracial adoption. Thanks for bringing that up,
Mhm.
Amy. It's something that it's not our lived experience, but I know there's even more complexity and another level to being
Absolutely.
transracially adopted.
For sure.
Yeah. Bree says, I always make the argument that trauma informed is the bare minimum. Agree. We need trauma aware, trauma attuned, trauma competent support, and not just from adoptive parents. Yeah, absolutely agree.
Mm.
Stephanie says in response to the passport thing, girl, I wish. Yeah, I know. If only love could bring you a passport, then
Yeah.
love would be all you need. Absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks y'all for your comments. And we have got some more debunking to do. You ready, Lauren?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, our next one is that adopters are saviors, heroes, or saints.
Yeah. Of course. So, I mean, that kinda goes into, like, the intent or the intent over impact again, 'cau they if you go into it thinking that you're gonna save a child, I mean, you kind of have that saviorism already in there. But, you know, people you also have to think of how it kind of goes along with I think there's another one where there's the stigma of birth families. Um, and so it's, what are they saving you from?
Hmm.
It's just there's such a stigma with birth families that they didn't want their adoptee, that there's a lot of uh, assumptions that birth families are addicts. That's one I hear a lot.
Yep.
Um, yeah, all the time I hear that.
Yeah.
um, or just poor or uneducated or all of the above. I hear all of that, and then it's just not the case for most of the time. I mean, everyone's story is different, but for the most part, we were wanted
Hmm.
to start off with. So that's a huge thing that people just can't seem to wrap their heads around, is that adoptees were wanted by their biological family, and most of the time they just lacked resources or support. So,
Hmm.
it's you're not saving them from an unwanted scenario.
Yes. And I feel like I'm going to hold your hand when I say this thing right to the camera for non adoptive people listening. Okay. When you insist that our biological families were evil people or addicted or incapable or didn't want us, you are dehumanizing them in order to protect the narrative that you've always held to be true, that adoption is good and beautiful and wonderful and saving grace, etc., fairy tale. And that's not acceptable. Dehumanization of anyone is unacceptable. So I agree, Lauren. Like I see that all the time. Of the second you say you're adopted, then the assumptions about your bio fam are that they were somehow like these evil people, and that excuses what most people know is not like normal for humans to want. Like relinquishment isn't something most people would want for their kids.
Right.
So clearly, like our bio families must have been total monsters. I hate that, and it
Right.
offends the heck out of me. But it also allows when you dehumanize one family, then you put the other on a pedestal, and it
Exactly.
becomes even more complex when there are religious overtones, likening religious salvation to adoption salvation, and that's
Mhm.
for the next conversation. Hi, Bree.
Right.
We're talking about religion later tonight, but
Yep,
I
yep.
absolutely think like it's unacceptable to dehumanize one family to justify adoption or to justify seeing another family as saints, because there's a lot more complexity than that. And most adoptees, as you say, we grow up, we find out we were wanted, but there was an element of shame or
Mhm.
coercion or a lack of social support, which, by the way, poverty is a systemic issue, not an individual failure.
Exactly.
And so, like, when we make things like poverty or the other barriers to um, family preservation like a personal failure, it just adds to the discourse that our biological parents are evil or what have you.
Right.
And I don't know if that was something that happened in your own household or if that's just something that was like later in the public eye for you of people demonizing your bio fam. But I know in my household,
Mhm.
the way that my biological family was talked about made an impact on me, because if I'm carrying their DNA and the words that were used in our house were they are crazy or yeah, crazy was the most common word. Or might have been addicts, even though to my knowledge nobody was.
Right.
Like that impacts you. That makes you wonder about yourself.
Right. And my family growing up didn't really say any of that stuff. They did say that alcoholism run in our family, which I don't even know if that's accurate. I don't
Mhm.
think it is, but that was kind of the story. I think that they and I didn't know that they knew my biological family or growing up. I found that out later is that it was a prearranged thing, and they knew my bio grandfather. So maybe that's part of why they didn't really say a whole lot about the family, but they did. I think they might have said stuff about my brother's family, but his was a closed adoption, and so they didn't actually know anything.
Even less info, yeah, than what you had. Yeah.
So they implied a lot of things
Mhm.
about the biological family,
Yeah.
but no,
Really impacts your sense of self.
yeah, it does. It really does. And even just, it like hearing that I had alcoholism in my family like made me terrified of drinking and like all that stuff too. So I don't know if that's why they told me that, but it was definitely impactful. But no, I've definitely seen more of the dehumanization of biological families as an advocate online, just because that's people immediately jump to that, and
Mhm.
it's awful to see. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Adding to you just made me remember another one that we actually didn't put on our list here, but I wanna throw in there that we hear a lot, and that's just go to therapy already.
Oh yeah.
Should we talk about that one?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
so
at
I think
least you think I'm not
related to that sense of self, it's like, what makes people think that we haven't been there already?
exactly, for a long time.
Mhm, still there
Yeah.
every week, man. And, shout out to my therapist who's also an adoptee, and it's the
Oh,
first time,
nice.
like, that shared language makes a huge difference, so
Mhm.
we need more adoptee therapists, which is, I think a big ask to then go and help other adoptees with their experiences once you've healed yours, because
Right.
even as an author addressing adoption, get really tired of talking about it sometimes. I'm
Yeah,
just like, I can't talk about adoption for at least another day. Like,
right.
I gotta put it away for a minute. So, we love our adoptee therapists, but yes, like most of us, if we have access and the privilege of access to that, we've been there, and that's a large part, at least for me, the reason that I am here advocating and not just like not thinking about it anymore, which some days I think would be great.
Right.
Yeah. So the just go to therapy thing, honestly, I don't know if I laugh when I see that one now because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh boy, you have no idea.
Right.
Maybe I should start like giving people my Venmo every time they suggest that so they can pay for a session
Right,
or two.
exactly. It's like, that's
Call
kind
it.
of the whole point, like, adoptees should have therapy from an early age.
Yeah,
So,
should have had it from the get. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we threw that one in there right on top of adoptees are lucky. And we've talked a little bit about being saved, but lucky we haven't brought up yet. So
Right, yeah, lucky in again, like, in terms of what? Because you were given a better life? No. It's not necessarily a better life, it's just a different life. So, we're not lucky for getting a better life. We got thrown into a different life that was chosen for us, and we had no say in it. And, you know, it's it's not luck necessarily.
Yeah, we've exchanged whatever challenges could have been for the challenges that are very real now. It's like, and that one's kind of a double-edged sword in my opinion, because I think it's easy for non-adopted people to say, "Well, you're being ungrateful. You were lucky to be adopted and you don't know what could have been, but you
Right.
know that you are better off now." It's like, if I don't know what could have been, then how do I know what could have been wasn't better?
Exactly.
There's like a um what am I trying to say? A double standard
Yeah,
to that argument of what could have been or what might have been.
for
That's
sure.
kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that's in reunion, that's been kind of a theme for me is, like, realizing how it's just completely different. It's not better, it's not, like, I've been in reunion now going on, like, 15 years, with my biological mom and her family, and a little bit less with my biological father and his family, but, it's learning more about them. I'm like, "Well, that could have been a really cool life to have led," and, like, you know, there I don't I wish that I had come out of the fog before my grandfather passed because I have so many questions for him, and I know that he would have been so open to talking about it.
Mhm.
So, it's a shame, but, like, the more I learn about my biological families, the more I'm like, "Nope, I wasn't lucky. I just got dealt this different life that wasn't necessary."
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I have this feeling of almost being haunted by the person that I could have been or would have been, and
mhm,
wondering how different am I now? And it like to some degree, it's an interesting thought exercise, and then people have made whole movies about diverging paths, in
right.
identity or choices. But
Exciting.
um, and the choices that were made for me, like how would I have been the same or different? So it
Right,
it can be it can be interesting to think about if you have the bandwidth, but it can also really be disturbing to being the person you are now.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
speaking of things we work on in therapy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's dovetail that one into we're just sliding one into the next, like these all go together. We did a good job.
Yeah.
Or they're all related.
Right.
No, but questioning adoption, making you ungrateful, or wanting to know your biofam, meaning you're ungrateful. I think we should put those together.
So being ungrateful yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a natural curiosity to want to know your biological family, your heritage. I mean, we wouldn't have ancestry sites be as popular as they are with kept people if heritage, culture weren't important.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
And I mean, I don't know about you, a lot of us were assigned that good old family history project, and mine
oh
was
yeah.
in the eighth grade.
Okay.
And how could you not wonder, like, I did mine on my adoptive mom's side, but,
Okay.
like, how could you not wonder, "Oh, well, what I wonder actually who my ancestors actually were," or I
Right.
wonder, like, what things I don't know already about myself or my DNA, or what who my ancestors were or where they came from, like,
Mhm.
it's not ungrateful, it's a natural curiosity that we have actual school projects built around,
Right.
or we have
Exactly.
people that get super into genealogy on Ancestry, and they know their
Yeah.
whole tree, and they know everybody on the tree, and they can tell you all the
Yeah.
life events of each person. Like, that's a natural curiosity to have, so why shouldn't adoptees wonder the same things without
Right,
being
and we're
ungrateful?
villainized for doing it. Like, people like I said, it's kind of like a cyclical conversation that keeps coming up where, like, people post about how, like, adoptees shouldn't go searching and all of that, and it's just it's cruel because it is natural, and we wanna know, and to say that we're I mean, I've been compared to, like, horrible things. I don't know
Mhm.
if I can say it on a live, but, like, people say awful things to us when we say that we want to search for biological family or that we already have even, and it's funny to me, having already been in reunion, to have these conversations with some people because they're like, "Well, you're a horrible person for wanting to find your biological family." I'm like, "I already found them. Like, we're really close." So, you know, it's not.
It's already we are the damage has been done, yo, like, I found them already, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's interesting to kind of look at the 2 sides of that particular coin of whether questioning or searching makes you ungrateful, because it's what do we owe each other, as
Mhm.
far as, like, decency goes, or do I owe gratitude to my adoptive parents for adopting me? Does any child owe gratitude to their parents for providing for their basic needs? I don't
Right.
think so. And it also goes to like, what is everyone owed as far as like, what do you have a right to know? And
Right.
why would that be different for adoptees?
Right.
Yeah.
Those are good questions. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's roll into kind of the impact of like what's going on for us when we receive this pushback, or what's the maybe the outcome? Because I think it's interesting for me to wonder what was the point of the pushback? Like, what are we protecting? And then
Right.
what in reality is the impact of the pushback?
Mhm. So, I mean, the pushback, the reality of it is, I mean, it can deter some people. Like, some people take things to heart and, but if you're basing your conversations in the industry and in facts and science and research, then, you can't really be deterred from that. So,
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if commenters pushing back are wanting us to stop talking about it or stop
mhm,
wondering about it, or if and I think it very much smacks of a need to control um, the narrative and like protect the status quo.
yeah,
And I think an important thing that I don't know, we didn't get a chance to ask ourselves when we came out of the fog and deconstructed what adoption means to us, but that I think other people should ask is like, what are you protecting by insisting that the status quo is maintained and not questioned?
right,
Like, what is it about your worldview that protects you psychologically or protects your view of what your family is, that would change if the things that we're saying are true about adoption? Because they are true. A lot of these things are proven. um,
yes,
but I don't think advocates are going to be deterred once we've made the decision that this is what we're going to say and do. It's not like we're going to stop because one person says you're not grateful.
right, right, right. No, I think actually when it's more pushback from within the community, then it's more of a deterrent. But I but that's a whole other topic of conversation that we don't need to get into.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think we could maybe be within our right to say like adoptee to adoptee pushback is a special kind of like heavy
mhm,
and a special complexity. And I think we owe it to each other to talk about how to what's our etiquette amongst each other while
yeah,
we're all advocating for reform. Because I know that reform looks different to
right,
just about everybody has a different idea in their head of like in an ideal world, what would adoption look like, or would it exist, right?
right,
But I think we, as a community, would do well to like remember that we need to support one another because no matter what we believe about what reform should be, like we're all in a minority class,
absolutely,
and so it's hard. I'm not calling for unity at all costs or anything, but I think it'd be good for us to remember that like we're all just out here trying our best to talk about something we've been through.
absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure,
We've written, and I want to say this out loud because I think it's really important that in spite of pushback, the data is not going to change,
right.
at least not related to the pushback. Now, I hope the data changes and that we have more and more of it over time.
Yes, that would be great. More research about adoption and relinquishment and all of the above would be fabulous to have.
Which, yet another can of worms for another live discussion, if we
Right,
wanted to, would be why don't we have enough research about adoption and its impacts? And a big part of that is societal interest, is unfortunately what drives funding for research.
right,
So when society wants to insist that adoptees don't have an impact, adoptees aren't traumatized, et cetera, should just be grateful, our research doesn't get funded. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy of if we don't look at it, it's never going to get looked at. And we got to turn the diamond a little more.
absolutely.
Yeah. And then, what do people demonstrate to the adoptees in their own lives when they are so vitriolic to adoptees online?
What do they demonstrate to?
Yeah, so like when people give us pushback, what are they demonstrating to the adoptees in their own lives in the real
Oh,
world?
in their own life, yeah,
Mhm.
they're not safe people. They can't become like, you can't come to them with any concerns or questions, or, like, if you're having any doubts about your adoption or anything like that, they're not a safe place to go to.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That momentary feeling of dopamine rush that you're arguing with someone online, may not you may not see the impact to me reading your rude comment or having to
Yeah.
deal with how to respond, but the adoptee in your life can sense that you're not a safe person to talk about this with, and can sense the like the shame. For me, it was a ton of shame that my adoptive family didn't even want me to talk about adoption. They wanted to just pretend it wasn't real. So I
Right.
internalized the shame, and then like we weren't able to have a closer, open relationship as a result. So for people who want to give us pushback, like you won't see the impact to us, but the adoptee in your life is feeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially if
100%.
you're an adoptive parent.
Yeah.
And the internet is forever, so
It
yeah.
is. It totally is. And I really like the quote that you put here at the end.
Yeah.
Accountability feels like an attack when you're not ready to acknowledge how your behavior harms others.
Yeah. I forget when I came across that, but that's been a huge, impactful quote for me, just to, like, to realize that, it's because all the time people say, like, "You're attacking me," if they're happy adoptees or something like that, like, they feel like they're being attacked, and I'm saying it's not an attack, it's just holding the industry accountable. It's not even holding them accountable necessarily, just the industry itself, and, you know, trying to make it a better place for adoption. If adoption exists, it's going to keep existing for a while probably. So, we want to make it the best outcome for all adoptees rather than just the ones that are currently happy.
Yeah, exactly. And that is what real love looks like. Real love comes alongside and wants to make meaningful change so that we all experience equity, equality, so that we all have what we need to thrive. And
Mhm.
so I think that if if you really love the adoptee in your life, you'll put your defensiveness aside and maybe consider what we're all saying.
Yeah,
And take a minute to kind of even just like I'm gonna Ted Lasso this whole thing right now and say like be curious, not judgmental, right? Like even just some curiosity can work wonders
for sure.
for the adoptee in someone's own life. If I've got one safe person outside of myself and my husband who I talk to, like within our families, who I talk to about
Yeah.
adoption stuff. I've got several safe friends. Shout out, love you guys. Uh,
It's
and I'm
important.
talking strictly non-adopted people because our adoptee community, again, love you guys. Shout out.
Right.
But one safe person within our families is my mother-in-law, who really
Okay.
has embraced what I have to say online, reads everything I write, which love you for that, Jody.
Aw.
And asks me some really like helpful questions. And we can always tell is my point, whether someone is disingenuous or sincere and
Mhm.
wanting to alongside and learn and be a safe presence. So
Yeah,
it makes a difference.
definitely. Yeah, it's so important to have safe people in our lives, and, you know, just trying to think about all the people that I have in my life that are safe people, like, it's very comforting to know that I do have a circle of friends that will listen to me whether or not they they'll whether or not they agree with me, I don't always know, but they'll listen to me and let me vent and all of that, and that's always nice. And of course my husband is very he's learned so much too by he'll say these little things every now and then about like adoption advocacy, and I'm like, "Oh, you're learning, you're listening."
Yes, no, same here. Like my husband will say something, I'll tell him what someone said to me online or a thing I've been thinking about, and he'll be like, "Well, that's dumb because blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, okay, we're on the same page. I love this."
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out to the real ones.
Yep,
Love it.
absolutely.
Cool. Well, this has been so fun. I love yapping with you. Thanks to
Yeah.
everyone who joined and sent us some great comments. Any I can't think of a phrase other than any parting shots, Lauren.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been fun. I want to try to do more lives and stuff in general and get out there and talk more and just get the conversation going because it's so important. And like, for so long I've just done like content, like just making videos and all of that. And I want to get more into it and all of that. So we'll see. But it's been fun.
Yes, it has been fun. So for the people that follow me but maybe haven't followed you yet, where can we find you online?
So I'm on TikTok and Instagram as Lauren underscore adoptee. Um, I think that's all I am doing for the adoption side of things, because I do other stuff too, but adoption, and that's another thing too, like, people always say, like, "This is your whole personality." I'm like, "No, it's not." It's not.
Heaven forbid a girl has a niche, right?
Right.
Like, yes, no, I've got a
Exactly.
whole other account with my fun artistic things, and I think you do too. But
Yeah.
for those who are discovering me through Lauren's accounts, I am also on TikTok, Instagram, on Substack. I think that's where the tag came from. Most of the places you can find me are dr.kristinkirkland, Dr. Kristin Kirkland. And my Substack is kristinkirkland.substack.com. I'm in the middle of a really fun series about adoption and how it meets the legal definition of human trafficking in the US. So if you really want to see some demonstrations of interesting pushback, you can just go read those comments.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's where I do a bulk of my work. And of course, I'm working on a book, and all of my socials will be full of that announcement when it comes in the spring of 2028. So just throwing that out there.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, this was really fun. Thanks to everyone who joined. I would like to just highlight a quick comment from Stephanie, our friend Stephanie.
Yeah.
She says, "This has been such a comforting listen because society makes me feel so crazy, but adoptee community reminds me I'm not alone."
Awesome. Yeah.
Same here, Stephanie.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. Until
Yeah.
next time.
Thank you. Alright, bye.